Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Safety Brief, your weekly check in for all things cyber. I'm your host, Elizabeth, and today we're tackling something that's become all too common in our industry, a little something we like to call Frankenstein security. Yeah, we're talking about those security stacks that are cobbled together with different tools, vendors, platforms, and sometimes with no integration or strategy behind them. It might look impressive from the outside, but behind the scenes, it's the patchwork that could be doing more harm than good. We have our experts, Mike and Matt, to help us figure out when security starts to fall apart and how we can get away from those Frankenstein stories. As always, thank you both for being here.
Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty, well, to start us off, what exactly is Frankenstein security and how does something like this happen in the first place? Do you think it's a slow creep over time or more of a rush decision making item?
Are we talking about the solutions themselves, or are we talking about the Muppets that are putting the solutions together? Because a Frankenstein solution would be the Muppet that's overseeing everything. Frankenstein's monster solution would be the junk they pieced together and then tried to make work.
I think a little bit of both on the MSP side and the seller as well.
Okay.
Or,
So the long and short to that is the Frankenstein aspect of it would be the MSP that is trying to skimp out and buy the cheapest possible products and make them all work together. The monster aspect of it is the stuff that they're trying to piece together to make it work, and generally does not happen because the cheapest products generally do not play well with each other because they do not have that level of a software development lifecycle to ensure that they will actually play well with others. That's where you end up getting complications of race conditions. That's where you end up having issues with applications getting completely and utterly, just destroyed when you put them on there. Or worse, you get something that is so vastly underdeveloped that it ends up causing you more work chasing down alerts than, what you had prior. And obviously more alerts means more fatigue, which means more people not wanting to wake up in the morning and actually go and defend their, livelihoods.
Yeah, I think as we approach the topic of what we're calling Frankenstein security, for those that aren't familiar or tracking the analogy, I think what we have seen a lot in our time working with MSPs, working with IT teams, is a lot of well-intended solutions delivered to a client that may not organically fit together, but they've kind of culminated this stack. It's more commonly referred to as the stack. What's in your stack, right? That's how most of the industry refers to it as. The Frankenstein element is there's really no organic blend or left and right lateral clean break between, hey, this does this and this does that, and there's not a lot of overlap. And so,
Mm-hmm.
kind of where you get into this analogy of Frankenstein, right? Is like we just grabbed a limb, we grabbed an arm, we grabbed a leg, and hey, it's a guy or a monster or whatever, right? And so, I think how does it happen is really MSPs are tasked with assembling a cacophony of tools and end results that they are paid to deliver to clients. That could be backups, that could be desktop support, just routine remote desktop in, help out the user, get back to work, peace out. But, there are a lot of vendors that are really entering the market that are saying, we're your one-stop shop. We have everything you need, and all you need is us. And the danger of that, as ironic as it is, there could be similar dangers there because where we're at in the marketplace and more so in the economy right now is there's a ton of mergers, there's a ton of acquisitions, there's a lot of roll-ups. And so you'll start seeing, hey, major name brand companies and tools are now a Whole Foods company, a Walmart company, you know what I mean? And so what we're seeing is these large conglomerates are purchasing these tools and selling it as a one-stop shop when it is the same kind of piecemeal together. This was good at this is good at that. Now, this isn't to be confused with vendor diversity, which is a good thing, right? So vendor diversity meaning, hey, Palo's best at firewall, that's who we use for firewall. The difference really, I think, between a Frankenstein security and a really curated stack is there's minimal waste when it comes to overlap. And so, for example, we've encountered partners that have had almost 5 to 7 different applications specific to security running on an end user's workstation concurrently and intentionally, meaning it wasn't like there's some transition period or previous MSPs had this, never uninstalled it. No, this MSP is intentionally running 5 to 7 things with the end result of, hey, more security is better than less security, or more tools are better than less tools. And one thing that makes Blockworks really different is it's not just security, it's not just reliability, but it's really a positive end user experience. That's what we're going for. Because the reality of the situation is if you come in the name of security, roll into this environment and say, hey, I got these 7 tools that are going to make everything great, user impact will almost be inevitable. When I say 7 tools specifically running on the computer, it's a lot of load, it's a lot of compute. And so really, as we talk about this theme of Frankenstein security is, there's a lot of well-intended MSPs that have gone into various shows and vendors, and vendors have approached them with a, hey, here's a one-stop shop, here's a great deal, here's an incredible value, and sold them maybe 8 to 12 tools that may or may not overlap or may not harmonize together. And so I think that's really the difference between a piecemealed monster, right, metaphorically speaking, and a really well-curated, hey, there's clean breaks. This is where this starts, this is where this stops, and minimal overlap that the user ultimately has to pay for.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I'm glad that you went on like both aspects, both sides. It's not all on the MSP and it's not all on the vendor. Vendors obviously need to do more rigorous testing before selling tools cohesively together. But MSPs also need to ask those hard questions, which we tout all the time on the Safety Brief. So I appreciate you kind of hitting both sides there. You hit a little bit on symptoms. So let's switch over now that we know kind of what the Frankenstein security is. Let's talk a little bit more about those symptoms. What are some of the most common signs that a cybersecurity stack has become too disjointed or is poorly integrated or not cohesively working together?
Most definitely. So I'd say there's probably 3 things that are really telltale signs. Number 1, security routinely interrupts the user's workflow. And when I say routinely, I don't mean that issues don't come up. Like out in that definition, then Outlook would routinely interrupt the user's workday, right? And that's not the case, right? There's just normal bugs, normal flaws, etc., that come up, and that's a part of it. But I would say routinely, as in the user is slowly, maybe early on in the life cycle or way down the line, they're automatically associating a negative experience with security. It gets in the way, keeps me from getting my work done, unable to function. There's a difference if for users it's a change in routine, meaning when I log in, I now need to use MFA, and they're just used to that, and within 60 seconds or less, they're back to work, right? That's a change in routine. Interrupting, meaning they are tangibly unable to make forward progress on their productivity because of said thing, right? And that's not security's aim. It's actually the opposite, right? Security is meant to keep the user working uninterrupted by bad guys. And so I think the second one is really, truly features in those tools that are not even turned on or configured, or even configured correctly. So what do I mean? So you could have a firewall, you could have an endpoint security suite that maybe 20% or 40% of the security features or really utilization is enabled. And it's either not enabled because of complexity, it's not enabled because of potential impact or whatever. But if each of those features have not been looked at and calibrated and then implemented, you're buying a Ferrari and you're staying in a school zone, right? Like, yep, the car looks cool. It has a lot of curb appeal, but tangibly, what value are you getting out on the road where rubber meets the road in real life? It's not a lot. And so that is a symptom. They say, hey, I have about 12 of these tools. And we'll hear this from partners. Like, we'll get on calls. I got on calls yesterday, even where they're just like, I have this and I'm not even sure what all it does. And that's, again, this is to MSP's credit. This is on the vendors that are not asking questions like, hey, before I sell you this thing, Do you have anything doing this? And everybody's just trying to sell. And I get it. Everybody's got to sell. Everybody's got to feed their family, make their money, grow their business, whatever. But there's no like qualification that really goes into play of saying, hey, let me ask if you have something doing this already before I go and sell you this thing that's redundant. And because if I know as a vendor, you have blank tool, and I know because I've done my research, that's my trade, that this does that already, then I can immediately, and we do this on the call, hey, you have something that does that already. The beauty of it, what we have doesn't do that. So there's some harmonization there, right? Like we're not trying to sell you something and overlap. And so I think, again, the first thing is primarily the user's routinely interrupted. The second is really, are there just features within that existing stack that are just not enabled or turned on? And we see this when an organization doesn't have MFA enabled, but they'll still go out and buy more tools. And it's like, what is a tool going to bring you that just maybe a couple of minutes of maintenance and some awareness training out to the users of what MFA is, what it does? Like, why are we doing that? Why are we buying more things that aren't going to solve that problem? And so, and I'd say the third really is just really, and this comes down to the MSP just being able to keep afloat, is margin. You know, if you're realizing that, like, hey, I'm not very profitable on endpoint security or cloud security, you got to ask yourself, how many tools are you including in that stack that is making it so expensive? And I say this in the fact that, hey, this isn't for bargain shoppers. This isn't for, like, I know that we don't all want end clients that are like, security is not for me. Yes, for thee, not for me, right? I don't want any security. I get that, but there is a way to profit off this. We have thousands of clients under hundreds of our partners that subscribe to these services, see the value in it, and our partners are profitable. And so there is a way to profit off this. So really, when it comes down to margin, I think too is, hey, am I too tool heavy? Am I too tool centric? And mostly as nerds and geeks, we can get in the weeds with tools and it's fun, right? I get it. But profitability is part of business, right? Just getting back to basics. And so I think that's another key piece, that if people are struggling with margin and have 8 to 10 tools, that's the dilemma, right? Now, if you have 0 security suite deployed and you're struggling with margin, best of luck. I don't know if I can help you, right? But I would say if you have a ton of bloat in your stack, there's a lot of things, and you remember had an exercise where you sat down and said, hey, have I bought 3 of the same things? I don't know. That's maybe a sign or a symptom.
Can't always blame sales either. So in many cases, a lot of the solutions that people are being given that they have on the shelf that they have no idea how it works is because they were mandated to buy that crap in order to get something that they actually wanted. This is what happens when vendors, I'm not going to call out any vendors specifically, which is unusual for me, acquire other technology. And when they acquire that technology and it's junk that nobody actually wanted in the first place, hence why it was acquired, they have to find a way to get it out there to make the executives happy and show that there's adoption of the solution. Mind you, adoption does not mean they're actually using it or anybody has a clue how to use it. It just means that it was sold. So what they do is they will require it to be part of a bundle and it gets sent out there. You now have a product that somebody actually wants. And then 4 other products that they don't know exist, don't know why they exist, and probably do the same thing as 4 of the things they have already in their environment. But they're required to get those if they want the one product they actually like. So that's why a lot of people get this stuff. And then, you know, as we know, there's turnover in smaller companies quite frequently. Somebody new comes in, somebody sees that they have all this stuff sitting on the shelf, and then they start to try and implement it. Because there was nothing left behind saying this software was we only acquired this because we wanted this. So without that clear internal documentation, you now have somebody that's trying to implement a new MFA on top of an MFA that's already in place, or trying to duplicate security solutions, like already having Keeper in place and then trying to use another password manager, but not ensuring that both of them are up to date. So now you have a mismatch between where everything is being stored. So it ends up causing more work because now you put this new solution in, but everybody else was using the old solution. So they're trying to use the passwords that are in the old solution, which aren't the ones that are in the new solution, and they're having to bounce back and forth, and it's an overall time sink. So that's some of what we have actually seen, and that's no fault of the customer. That's the fault of vendors as a
Mhm.
whole. I mean, I get it. You guys want to acquire new products to set yourselves out, but if you're going to acquire something and then force it on people because nobody else wants to buy it on its own, maybe you should have just cut your losses and not bought that product so that you don't have to try and make it look profitable by, bundling it in and basically giving it away for free. But hey, we have this much market share. Look at all these people that have our product and aren't using it.
Yeah, bundling isn't always a great thing. It may sound nice, but it's not always great. Thank you for that, Matt. So, here's a question I know many people in the industry may have, and that is, can having too many tools actually increase risk instead of reducing it? And if so, why does adding more security sometimes backfire? This is something we've seen in some of our MSPs as well. So,
This all comes down to the mindset and having a security mindset. When you are not security minded, the trend is I need more security. I need more security. I need more security. When you are security minded, it's I need better security. I need properly configured security. I need properly tuned security. So it goes from needing more to having everything implemented the right way to ensure that, as we discussed before, you're not getting race conditions, you're not getting conflicts, you're not getting an overabundance of notifications and alerts that are being sent to you that you have to chase down.
mhm.
So adding more and more and more, that's a rookie move. We see that a lot. I've seen people that start, their company and they unfortunately go to certain websites that have a tiny little robot as an icon and start asking, what do I need to use? Well, everybody on there spouts the same junk, but they don't spout out, you need to select the ones that you want and not try to use all of them. Because then you get people trying to have two different EDRs that are running. You get people that are trying to have all different solutions that are being thrown into place, two or three different endpoint protection solutions on top of the EDRs. That's not doing anything. That's just creating absolute and utter chaos for anybody that's trying to work on your machines as a user, or unfortunately as a security professional that's trying to wade their way through all of those alerts.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think, how do you end up in a situation like that where, you know, you have a plethora of tools, probably more than you can realistically manage as a provider. And it's interesting, the trend that we see is it's more often than not the bloated tool providers are less than 5 employees. And why is that? The reason why is because they're looking for tools to increase their scalability, meaning I can't do all of this, meaning take the time to harden and tune and all of this, get the full horsepower out of the thing I have, right? Whatever that is. And I'm procuring tools with the hope that I can build this into my cost model and I reduce risk by deploying said tools. And on paper, that makes logical sense. The problem is that the more tools, quote unquote, you maybe deploy, there is an increasing perception of risk reduction when there are very few tools that are set and forget. What do I mean by that? The moment you deploy them, you are immediately more secure. And that is true to a certain degree. Um, but really, where we find our sweet spot as Blockworks and for our partners is they can come to us because what are they looking for? They're looking for as least amount of contracts and vendor relationships as possible. They want to have as easy to track invoices in, invoices out, costs of goods sold, cost of business, right? They want to calculate all that. I get that. They need to maintain their profitability and their scalability. But the benefit is we bring multiple tools that we kind of go out and curate. We piecemeal this kind of curated Frankenstein, if you will, in that, hey, there's clean breaks between each of these. This is why we include 2 tools in certain services, 1 tool in others that do many things. But again, not knocking those that have bought as many tools. I think the difficulty or the danger is you go and buy a 8-pack of security cameras at Costco because it's $80 more than the 4-pack. And you're like, look how much more secure I am. And it's true to a certain degree. But when you're one to 5 person shop and you already have everybody doing a lot of things, you just need to be mindful that it is most often a human adversary in cybersecurity that we are fighting. And tools, as good as they are, as Grok and ChatGPT and OpenAI and Gemini are, we're not there yet. Tools can't go. It can't be tool versus human and human not win every time. And so often what we see is we see a lot of partners, again, well-intended. They want to scale. They want to grow. They go and they buy 5 or 6 different tools. They deploy them. And then there's perception is because they're running them good. And I don't need to think about that thing anymore. And the difficulty with that is, again, just persistent threats are often human driven. And so are there automated attacks? Yes, most certainly. But again, what we're seeing a lot with data brokers and getting access to credentials and selling them off to very motivated individuals that know there's a short runway between if I have those credentials to the time I can own that company, then they'll do it. That's why they very selectively choose their preferred life cycle of the kill chain that they focus on. They're very methodical. They're very tactical about it. And so the greatest thing we can, the greatest danger we can in kind of inherit is underestimating that level of organization and, thinking that we can just throw a tool up to safeguard it. Now, again, everything is risk and everything is risk reduction, and risk is a percentage. There is no on-off button. Risk is not binary, right? We talked about quantum computing. I think it was last week or 3 years ago. I can't even tell you. That conversation was so over my head. But I think reality is we think of security as on-off. Is it deployed? Is it running? If yes, then good. If not, then bad. And it's more nuanced than that. It's growing more nuanced than that. I wish it was a seatbelt where if you just click, you hear the click, you're good. But it's just, we have people actively trying to pull that seatbelt out now. And so in cybersecurity, it gets a little bit more nuanced. And so again, to those smaller providers, those smaller shops, I'm talking, 5, 10 employees max, MSPs, got some admin team, got some technical team. Just be wary of over purchasing tools where, let's say you cut your tool stack in half and you hire one person to just monitor those tools. Far better use of revenue and spend, I think, than if you bought 5 tools to be not cared for and sought after and babysat, if you will. You know what I mean? So again, risk reduction is a funny thing. It's a tough thing to quantify, but I would say cut your stack in half, hire an engineer to monitor it, or even more scalable, look at what we do and see it as, hey, I got a whole team, I got a whole bench and a whole curated stack. I don't need to go and buy the tool and then another service agreement and then somebody to monitor it. Again, we have a large partner base for a reason. And it's primarily that scalability piece that, hey, I know that the stack's been curated. I don't have to talk to a single vendor about negotiation and contract and tool and all of that. Plus it's tuned and monitored. Plus anything that happens that tool sees that's actioned. You're talking force multiplication of scalability when you're either a smaller shop, sub 10 people, but we have plenty of partners that are 50 employees or more that see them save value.
You have to also look at one of the major things, like you were talking about, when you are small like that, what is the chance that you're going to have somebody on staff that is security minded and focused? When you're small like that, the focus is trying to grow so that you can start adding to that bench. Mm-hmm. But when you start looking at a lot of these tools and you start looking at a lot of what they do, you can't just have somebody who's moderately familiar with IT start taking over and managing your security. That doesn't work. We've seen what happens when people do that. There's way too much difference between IT and security. And then you throw in these programs in the mix that are doing all kinds of things on the back end, which again may or may not actually be working, because sales doing their job means you're going to pick up the product. It doesn't necessarily mean the product is going to do what it says it does. It makes it even harder. So when you're starting to look at that and you're looking at, okay, I have these utilities that are part of my tool belt. I'm like Batman. I've got a tool for everything. Well, Batman was trained and did the training to know what every one of those tools did in the situation that he would need to actually leverage them. And if that didn't work, he had Lucius Fox on the back end that would tell him, use this tool in a little radio thingy that he could communicate with. You may not have that radio thing. He did. He had a team. You may not have that radio thing to talk to your team all the time and let them know what's being looked at. We talked about about all the quantum computing and quantum threats last week. Yes, I know, Mike. It felt like it was much longer than last week. That's something that, I mean, it's going to completely change the landscape. And unless you have people that are readily available and able to handle that kind of security knowledge, it's going to put you at a detriment with the more products that you actually have out there. And once we start seeing those threats, just like what we see right now with vendors claiming AI or vendors claiming that they can automate all of these solutions for you, you're going to find that, yeah, they can partially do that. But as we're seeing with a lot of these utilities that are supposedly going to correlate threats and give you a better landscape picture and help you stop all of the nasty stuff before it even gets there, there's a lot of human validation that still needs to be put in place because the technology is not there yet. It makes mistakes, a lot of mistakes. Oh, I'm sorry, it hallucinates. But it's something where you have to be wary. You need to be careful. And I would highly suggest following what Mike was saying. Scale back, get people that can actually handle the solutions the right way. If that means that you hire one person and you have a smaller stack that's more focused on what you're actually good at instead of trying to be a jack of all trades and a master of none, then by all means do that. There is no benefit to going out there and being able to master something 30%. And then that other 70% is just kind of left in the wind as I'm going to send thoughts and prayers and hope that nobody realizes that I don't cover that 70%.
Yeah, I also think one of the biggest risks in the Frankenstein security stacks is cohesiveness and tuning, which you guys kind of touched on a little bit there. But, we've seen it to where tools are blocking other tools. So essentially, you're buying 6 to 7 tools and they may be working against each other instead of together with each other, which is why you need that team to curate and tune those tools to work together instead of against each other. So, well, let's switch it up to some advice here. Let's say someone is listening and is realizing their stack might be a little Frankenstein-ish, right? What steps can teams take to audit what they have and start streamlining their tools into something that actually work together instead of against each other?
You can make a matrix. Take the product, list what its capabilities are, at least what you know that they are from the, I guess, on the box, since we don't really get them as a box anymore. It's kind of, what's actually listed. What does it support? Start making a list. You can use Excel and, use a different row for each one of your products that you have and list the capabilities and try to use the same terminology as best you can. Go in there and say, find duplicates when you're done. If you've been using the same terminology, you will be able to find the cells that are duplicated. That will help you to tell if, product A is doing the same thing as B, C, D, and E. If you see that you have a product that is listed there, say the first product that you have, and you have another product that does damn near the same thing, like it's almost all duplicates, then you might want to look and say, okay, which one of these is giving us the best return on our investment and the best value to our customers? And that can help you to actually eliminate certain things that you may not need to have in there. If you are running, and I'm just going to throw this out there, if you are running 3 endpoint protections,
they're not
most
working
of
together.
them, they're fighting each other. They are,
We've
because
seen it. Yeah.
yes, there are things called filter drivers that are there for a reason. And guess what? There can be only one filter driver that is the alpha. It's like Highlander. Okay. And they will all try and kill each other to be the alpha. Now, they will eventually fall in line. One of them will take control. And then, in the event that it fails, it will fall to the others that then have a battle royale as to who's going to actually handle the item and, take action on it. But that doesn't help your situation at all. Having three of them in place, I mean, yeah, three is more than one, but it doesn't help your environment at all. So what you got to do is sit down and say, okay, what gives me the most comprehensive coverage that I am able to efficiently manage, but also gives me the best value for my customers? You find the one that's there and then take the heads off the other two. And then you are the only one.
Yeah. To Matt's point, we have had at least, I want to say probably 10 to 15 partners this year that before partnering us or ever coming on board, they sent us a bulleted list of all of their security tools and said, help me make sense of this. Mind you, they are not contract holding partners. This was before they came on board and signed an agreement. This is not a shale stick. This is just simply that we really look at candor as a core value, and we have partners come to us and say, hey, I have these things deployed. Where do they fit in the grand scheme of things? What is more disjointed, and where would what you provide displace or fit better? Right. And so we've generated those Excel documents countless times. We have one that I'm working on this week to get back to a partner out on the northwestern coast of the United States. And again, it's a really hard exercise for MSPs to maybe sit down and do for an hour or 2 hours, but even more valuable to a just a perspective that our team brings to sit down and look at those, because we've evaluated and vetted a wide variety of those tools. So we know, hey, it's one thing to go and ask the dealer, how does the Honda Odyssey compare to the Toyota Sienna? But it's another thing to go talk to Kelley Blue Book and say, hey, we've driven all of them, and here's the things we love about them, and here's the things we don't, and here's what I could just tell you because we did it. And so that's a very unique perspective that Blockworks brings. We're very transparent about what tools we standardize on, which ones we don't, and why. And so we publish those findings for our partners to kind of understand. Again, it's very scientific method, very methodical. We ran this. Here's the miles per gallon. Here's the miles per gallon. And it's often different than what's advertised, because that's what marketing is, right? It's okay. But again, it's just a transparency type culture. So if you are out there, if you are listening, if you're a partner of ours considering us, never heard about us before, I would encourage you to drop a line to sales at Blockworks, BLOKWORX.com. And again, just say, hey, here's the stack that I'm currently using. Would love to get on and just talk through what is more disjointed, what is less, how can I consolidate, get more bang for my buck and whatnot. And so, yeah, more often than not, partners that come on board reduce the number of tools, reduce the overhead spend, meaning it is cheaper to consolidate, and they're getting more risk reduction as an after effect, right? And so there's greater scalability, there's greater risk reduction, and greater profitability. I'm not sure how to better spell out a logical business decision than if you can capture all those three things in one fell swoop. And so, yeah, I'd encourage you to reach out. And again, going into a holiday weekend, I get it. A lot of schools and whatnot are closed, but the next 2 weeks or so, think about it, meditate on it, reflect on it. But really, truly, we will hop on a call, talk through it. But it is an exercise that is valuable to look at and say, hey, I have been through probably 3 years of expos and shows. I have ended up with about 15 tools. What can I consolidate? What can I? And again, like we're not contractually obligated to any vendor or tool, so we can really come at it very non-biased and say, here's what we think of this tool. Here's what I think this tool is designed to do. If that's an end result in your business that you want, it's a great tool. We don't deploy it, and here's why. And so we're very objective about these things. So feel free to reach out. It is something we do routinely, and there's no surprise invoice or anything in the mail after the fact, right? It's just doing what we can to help people out.
And Mike knows I have no problem getting on and talking about different solutions.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. That's you will find, and this is something that really sets people in cyber apart. You can tell the ones that are there for profit. You can tell the ones that are there because they care. The ones that are there because they care are the ones that will get on and explain the different nuances and subtleties to you, that just want you to actually be protected, want your customers to be protected, want your employees to be protected. That's one of the things that we do. Like, we don't we do this because we actually care about trying to keep people safe. And we've seen what happens when people aren't kept safe. We've all either seen somebody or been in the middle of an IR solution or situation where it's not a positive outcome.
Or where the
Once
vendor
you've,
sold the tool that failed and then charged you to fix what was
yeah,
broken,
yeah,
which
use
is
our
wrong.
product, but if it fails, it's okay. We got your back. We can fix this.
For
Oh, okay. For how much extra? A lot extra, because that's where they make money.
yeah,
We're not like that. That's not how we roll. We like to actually keep people safe, and we would rather people be safe than have them spend a whole lot of money for something that was preventable in the first place. Knowledge in cybersecurity was originally designed to be shared. And back in the olden days, makes it sound like it was so damn long ago, but it really wasn't. It's that quantum thing, man. It feels like it's so much longer ago.
Right. Dog
Um,
years.
Basically, yeah. Uh, when cyber first started out, it was a very sharing and nurturing environment. It was good guys versus bad guys. The good
yeah,
guys would share all the information they had in order to try and stop the bad guys. Then it started turning towards how much profit can we make from this, and everybody started holding things back until they were able to say that they scooped everybody on this.
yeah.
And because of that, cyber has kind of turned into an utter nightmare. We are one of the ones that still hold true to that value, that knowledge is meant to be shared and disseminated to people. That's why we do this. We have a live stream that is dedicated to providing knowledge to everybody, not just our partners, but everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have questions, if you want to know, hey, is my stack really as good as I think it is? Or how could I augment this and make it stronger, but yet have a leaner profile of programs that I'm leveraging? That's where we can come in. We can tell you, you don't have to sign with us, but we want to make sure that you at least are equipped with the knowledge to make an informed decision.
Yeah, thank you for that, Matt. Spreading awareness is our end goal and why we show up every Thursday. So I'm glad we got to highlight that a little bit more today. And as Mike stated, feel free to reach out to us at sales@blockworks.com if you have any questions, or just drop it in any of the comments on any of the platforms that we're live on today, or if you're watching this in the future. But those were some great insights today. Thank you both so much for walking through this with us. The truth is, a stack made of all the best tools doesn't mean, if they don't work together, structure, visibility, and strategy always beat quantity. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's Safety Brief. Remember, we do go live every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, so feel free to follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcast. Share this with the team that might be stuck in the patchwork mode, and let's help everyone get back to building smarter, not broader security. We hope to see you next time on the Safety Brief.
Thanks all.